Rustin is an Oscar-nominated movie for the performance of what's his name? Coleman Mingo. Yeah. Yeah. It is a performance that has been nominated for the Oscars this year, so a movie I had to check out. And it was a movie I had no clue about till recently. In fact, I think I was doing my reactions for the SAG Awards the other day, and I was like, "What's Rustin?" I don't even know what the hell that is. Turns out I should have kind of. I mean, it turns out it's not a surprise that I didn't know what Rustin is, who Rustin is. But it's kind of important to know who Rustin is. If you do not know who Rustin is, he was a man who lived, during the civil rights movement and such like that. He was a gay man, and he was a man who essentially, planned and orchestrated the biggest peaceful protest march in history that ended with Martin Luther King Jr. giving the "I Have a Dream" speech, right in front of the Lincoln Monument in Washington, D.C. So yeah, I had no clue who this man was, and now I do know, and I'm glad I do know. It is a very interesting story, I will say that. All the acting in this is phenomenal. Truly, he does deserve his Oscar win, Domingo. He's so great in this movie. It is a biopic, though, and it is extremely generic. And not the best written. This movie has a lot of dialogue that's kind of just explaining history. And the thing is I think most of us have we all know of that march that day. We all know of MLK giving that big speech. Maybe we don't know like all the little bitty details, but we know of it. And this movie kind of does a lot of explaining of it. And it's like, yep, we know this. We've had a history class, and I hope like heck we've all had a history class that at least touched on this day in our history, because it was a very important day in our history. So for me anyway, I was kind of just like, you're telling me a lot of stuff that I hate to say it's common sense, but it is kind of common sense. I guess I've also been to DC. I've been to the Martin Luther King Memorial. I've been to the Lincoln Memorial. I've been to all those things. So maybe for me, I just knew a little too much because it has been something that I have been interested in the past. Honestly, I was shocked that I didn't know who this was because I do know quite... I thought I knew quite a bit about this march. I did know that it was the most, it's still the most successful peaceful protest like in history. It's the biggest one like ever. So yeah, some of the performances in the movie, particularly Domingo, is kind of loud and showy, I guess you could say. I think that's kind of how the man maybe was in real life. I'm not sure. I gotta do some research on that. Because again, it is something that does interest me. I will say the pacing with this one, too, is maybe just a little bit slow. And there's just a lot of, conversations leading up to this big thing. And I will say, obviously, the march is in the movie. I don't think it needs to be, though. It's kind of just... I don't even think it's done particularly well, per se. Not only that, but the movie's called Rustin, and it feels like the last 15 minutes become Martin Luther King movie, and it's about Rustin. So I almost feel like the march doesn't need to be in here. It could have just ended with we're about to go march, or we could have had Martin Luther King Jr. up at the podium, about to open his mouth and cut. I don't know, something like that. I don't know, but it felt just Martin Luther King-y by the end of it, and it should be about Rustin. Obviously, there's, like it ends with a scene with Rustin. It gives, the biopic, words on the screen. It does do that, but it just felt a little bit, overshadowed by the end by Martin Luther King, which is interesting. There are some great tense scenes. I said that it is a lot of dialogue. It is a lot of dialogue, and there are some great scenes between, two characters talking. Like I said, this man was a gay man in the, what would have been, the 50s? Does it say on here? No, it doesn't say. They're in civil rights. I want to say it was the 50s. I'm that tired, guys. I usually know this. During the 50s. So, it wasn't okay to be gay. And I wish it almost focused on that a little bit more instead of, throwing so much, here's history at you. I wish it kind of focused a little bit more on that and his struggle with that as he's planning this march, I guess. And I just wish there was less explaining. And it does become a Martin Luther King movie. And it just takes away from Rustin. And again, I didn't know who he was. I think this should have, while it did educate me on Rustin, I think it should have left me more on a Rustin note. Instead, it's an MLK note. And I didn't like that. I wish it didn't take away from the movie. That's my biggest problem with this one. All in all, it is generic. I talked about Bob Marley recently and how I wish it had given me more of a generic biopic. This one's almost too generic. And it does do something different, essentially, by, having lots of conversations, not going through his entire life per se. It does go through the big moments, but it does a lot of explaining, like I said. It does a lot of telling more than it does showing. And that is different, but I don't think the writing was quite there to make it work for that. What else can I say about this one? Overall, it is a good movie. It's not bad. It's a one-time watch for me. I'll probably never watch this again. It just didn't particularly, sit with me. I'm glad I've seen it, so now I know who the man is. I want to see if there's got to be some books or a movie or a documentary or something about him that I can learn more about this particular man, because he does seem like a very interesting human being. And he did do a lot. If with his planning of this was a very important event in our history. He's a very important person that I can't believe, isn't common knowledge. So, yeah. Overall, a very, very good movie. Again, I'll never watch it again. Certain things that just bug me a little bit, particularly with the ending. Overall, I'm gonna say a 7 out of 10. For me, this was more about the performances than it was the actual movie itself. I would have liked a little bit more from it, but still a very good movie. So yeah, guys, that is my review of Rustin. More movie reviews to come. Oscars are about 2 weeks away from when I'm recording this. So yeah, bring them on. Here we go. I hope you guys have yourself a great day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and we will see you next time.